Hello, my name is Sue Searing. I'm a storyteller in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this story is called It Takes a Village to Make Pork Buns. It was November of 2020, and here in Minneapolis, the COVID statistics were rising rapidly. We were peaking in the number of cases, and my mental state was rapidly declining. We had been in lockdown and isolation for months, and now things were only getting worse. So when I saw that my neighborhood food co-op was offering a free online class in cooking Japanese steamed pork buns, I signed up right away. I was desperate for something novel to do, to learn something new that would connect some different neurons in my brain. And besides, my wife and I really missed going out to restaurants for Asian food. So a few days before the class, the co-op emailed us the recipe and the list of ingredients that we would need. And that is the first time I realized that to make these buns, I would need a bamboo basket-style tiered steamer. I didn't own such a thing. And in normal times, if it wasn't too expensive, I would have gone out and bought one. So I did a little Googling, and yes, I could get a cheap bamboo steamer for as little as $20. But I didn't really want to go to a store. I mean, we were in lockdown. I was trying to keep my retail excursions to only absolute essentials. Now, I could have ordered one online, but we were just a few days out from the class. I would have had to pay exorbitant shipping charges to get it there on time. And the truth was, I didn't want to buy one. I'm at a stage of my life where I'm trying to divest myself of possessions, not acquire new, special purpose kitchen tools that I might only use once. So I decided, instead of buying a steamer, I would beg for one. And my channel for doing that was going to be a brand new Buy Nothing Club on Facebook. Now, there have been pre-existing online channels for acquiring used goods from other people or getting rid of my own used stuff I didn't want, like the web boards for the Free Cycle group, or the online yard sales through the Nextdoor app. And I'd availed myself of those at various times. But the Buy Nothing Club was brand new in our neighborhood, and it was just our neighborhood and the neighborhoods immediately to the east and west. Well, I could walk to the home of anybody who was part of this group. And it had a loftier mission than those other groups. The Buy Nothing group was devoted to creating a network of micro-local gift economies. That's what it said. And they said that true wealth was really the network of connections that are created between people who are real-life neighbors. I liked that. And so I put my ask out there on the Facebook group, just certain that one of these neighbors would have sitting back in a cupboard somewhere an unused bamboo steamer, and they would feel all warm and fuzzy if they could give it to me. I put my ask out there and I waited. And I waited. Well, I was just about to cancel my registration in the class because I didn't have a steamer when someone named Elizabeth, a stranger to me, commented on my post. And she wrote, "I don't have one to give you, but you're welcome to borrow ours for the night." Terrific! I texted Elizabeth, she texted back. We made arrangements for me to do a contactless pickup from her front porch, just 4 blocks over. The last message she sent me, though, said, "Full disclosure, the last time we used the steamer, we burnt it around the edges. And so it's a little black and charred on the bottom, but it still works." Fine, I thought. And on the day of the class, I walked over to Elizabeth's, picked up the steamer from her porch, never saw her, and brought it home. That night, I cleared off the kitchen table, got all my ingredients set up, perched the laptop up on top of the toaster oven, set the bamboo steamer and a pot of water on the stove, and logged into the class. There were 200 people online for this class, way more than would ever have fit into the little demo kitchen at the food co-op. Well, the instructor walked us through all of the steps and we followed along. Chopping the onions, oh, that made our eyes water. And then we molded the pork into little tiny meatballs. We had set the dough aside to rise a little bit, just a very simple dough of flour and water, a little oil and baking powder and a bit of yeast. And we rolled that out into little, about 6-inch rounds, put a meatball in the center of each and pulled them up and pinched them. And then we pulled them up and pinched them again after they fell apart. And when we finally got our little dumplings to hold together, we put them in the steamer one by one. And when the steamer was full, we set it in that shallow pan of boiling water, put the lid on. And as the aroma of that pungent meat and that sweet dough began to fill the kitchen, the instructor walked us through making a very simple miso soup to accompany it. And in no time at all, we were sitting down to eat those wonderful, warm, steaming buns. And they tasted every bit as good as the ones we'd had eating out. But I had a lot of ingredients left over. So the next morning I got up and I made a second batch of pork buns. They came out well too, maybe a little better because I had practice. I still had ingredients left over. So I made a third batch. And just as I was lifting the steamer out of the water from that last batch, it fell apart. You see, these steamers are not held together with any kind of rivet or metal staple. No, they're just stitched together with little threads of bamboo. Big pieces of bamboo wrapped around, stitched together with little threads of bamboo. And those little threads at the bottom had been charred and blackened, and with all this heavy use, they just popped open and the whole thing started to disintegrate. I felt terrible. I texted Elizabeth, "Thank you so much. The steamer worked great." And I destroyed it. "Of course, I'll buy you a brand new one to replace it." And she texted right back, No, don't worry. It was going to fall apart sooner or later." I offered her a half-dozen steamed pork buns by way of atonement, and she was happy to accept those. So later that day, I walked back to her house, dropped off a bag with what remained of the steamer and a half a dozen buns, and I still never saw Elizabeth. I never even heard her voice because all of our communication was through text. To this day, we've never met face to face. But you know, thanks to that interchange, thanks to her kindness, and thanks to the Buy Nothing Club, in the deepest part of the pandemic, when I was feeling most isolated and most low and most cut off from my community, there was a point of connection. And you know, it's a good thing that the Buy Nothing Club has a bigger mission than just not buying stuff. Because although I didn't end up having to buy a steamer for Elizabeth, well, my wife really liked those pork buns. I did too. And you know what she got me for Christmas? A brand new bamboo steamer under the Christmas tree this year.